Welcome back to another Couch GM live podcast. If you're listening to the audio only version of this podcast, make sure to go check out the full version on YouTube. I'll be pulling up graphics today, showing stats, talking through some graphics, showing some highlights of Ryne Stanek. So make sure to go check it out on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome to the stream. Make sure to comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. And let me know your thoughts and opinions on the topics that I'll be covering today. Today, we're going to get into quite a bit. There's been a bit that's happened over the past week. Today, today the Mariners rolled out a lineup that looks a lot like what the opening day lineup might look like. Absent of one or two guys. We'll go through the lineup from today. Also, big news, Jackson Kowar, a relief pitcher that was acquired in the trade, sending Jared Kelenic to the Braves. It was announced that he has UCL damage, and he is now headed to the 60-day IL. He's headed for Tommy John surgery, which will end his season. In a subsequent move, which actually happened before the news came out, Ryne Stanek, a relief pitcher, most recently with the Houston Astros, was signed to a 1-year, $4 million contract. We'll get into that. Noelvi Marte, ex-former, number one prospect for the Mariners, shipped over to the Cincinnati Reds in that Luis Castillo trade that sent Luis Castillo to the Mariners, has been suspended for 80 games for PED use. We'll get into that. Also, is Paul Sewald 2.0 in the Mariners system currently? I saw a tweet from Ryan Divish today that we'll get into, which is definitely intriguing. And then also, if you're watching the stream, make sure to stay the entire time because I'm going to be doing a Baseballism sweatshirt giveaway live later in the show. It's a size large. It's a Griffey sweatshirt, so make sure to stay up. All of this and more coming up. But first, a word from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by Black Label Supplements. I've been taking their product for a few weeks. It's really quality stuff. And when I made the Noelvi Marte video, I made a joke about how you should take, Black Label Supplements because it's third-party tested, athlete approved. You won't test positive for drug tests. That's an actual thing. I mean, there's been people in the past that have said, oh, it was whatever pre-workout I was taking, whatnot. Noelvi tested positive for a steroid, but it's important to use a product that you know what's going to be in it. And this is a third-party tested product. So visit blacklabelsupplements.com, use code CouchGM for 15% off. Also, a big shout out to our sponsor, Baseballism. This is one of their shirts, the hat on the wall. I'm doing a Baseballism giveaway, one of their sweatshirts later on in the show. They're the official lifestyle brand of baseball, have some super cool apparel. They're based out of Portland. Was able to go see their warehouse and kind of where it all started, which is cool. Visit baseballism.com. Code CouchGM gets you 15% off as well. Also, if you want to make an upgrade to your man cave or your home office, visit glance-led.com. I got that Glance ticker panel behind me. You could track stocks, crypto, sporting events, a lot of cool stuff. Visit glance-led.com. Again, CouchGM for 15% off. And then if you want to start a YouTube channel, start streaming, visit StreamYard. I believe I have a link in the description here to StreamYard, which is what I use to live stream across platforms, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, you name it. So really cool stuff there. This Thursday marks 2 weeks until the start of the season. So if you're going to be in Seattle opening day for that weekend, let me know. I'll be up there Thursday and Friday for opening day. And then the second game, that'll be against the Red Sox. And one thing I'm curious to see about is the Red Sox are making a documentary on Netflix. So I'm curious to see how many, camera staff people they have around there and what that looks like, what that process looks like. Fingers crossed that the Mariners are able to do something like that one day, but that'll be a really fun weekend. So make sure to let me know if you'll be up there for opening day. Also, before we get into anything baseball, any football fans out there? I just was scrolling on Twitter today and there was it was madness on Twitter, the amount of moves and the amount of names that were moving. Apparently it's like a tampering period right now. And then guys will actually be signing in a couple of days from now. I'm not exactly sure on the details with all that, but a ton of big names moving. Saquon Barkley, Kirk Cousins, just to name a couple. If you want to follow all things football, make sure to check out In the Trenches podcast with Will Ortner. He, we're connected together. He's a part of the Couch GM network. Lots of great stuff over there. So starting with the Mariners movement from this past week, as I mentioned, Jackson Kowar is now headed for Tommy John surgery. Ryne Stanek was signed to a 1-year deal. Jackson Kowar looked extremely promising for the Mariners coming out of that Kelnick trade. His numbers in the major leagues were nothing to write home about. He had quite a bloated ERA, you could say, but the stuff was definitely there. Fastball up to 97 plus. He has a devastating changeup that was reminiscent of like a Devin Williams type changeup. Not quite there on the metrics, but just from the eye test, it looks a lot like it. So a big loss for the Mariners, but they replace Jackson Kowar with a proven reliever. Jackson Kowar was an unproven guy in the bullpen that you were hoping could have like the Mariners effect, to where he was one of the guys that they find and pick up and are able to make something out of. But they replace him with a relief pitcher in Stanek that has playoff experience, World Series experience with the Astros. He's a 32-year-old, 6'4", 225 flamethrower. He's got a split changeup and a slider as well. And it's a big get for the Mariners on that front to replace that and some certainty into the lineup. And then I made the video on the bullpen in the past. It's like now you have Andres Munoz, Gregory Santos, Matt Brash, Gabe Spire, Taylor Saucedo, and now you have Ryne Stanek. And then if Carlos Vargas can work his way into a spot in the bullpen, that's going to be an insane, back end of the bullpen to face. So let's get into Stanek. So I'm going to play a video here of Stanek and what he had to say when he was talking to the press for the first time as a Mariner.
And obviously the stuff is pretty undeniable. Obviously they've taken a very strong interest in figuring out how to get the most out of guys, how to develop stuff, how to add really viable weapons to people's repertoires. And obviously bringing in a guy like Castillo a couple years ago, like such a big add and a big emphasis on that is really good. And it's a team that, like, obviously from afar you see the stuff and then what the stuff has turned into as well, like as the seasons have gone on and they've added pitches and stuff to the people's mixes, and they've all been like effective and worked well. So it definitely as a pitcher and somebody that wants to get better is a really cool thing to watch and now to be a part of.
So, as Stanek mentions, he knows what the Mariners are able to do here, the talent that they have, and to be able to join a bullpen like the Mariners have, and in the pitching lab that they have, I think will be a great addition. I'm going to show some graphics here. So this is Ryne Stanek, his Baseball Savant page. If we get it pulled up here. And I do see you guys spamming on the Luke Rayleigh. I'll get to that. So here's Ryne Stanek's Baseball Savant page from 2023. As I mentioned, he has a four-seam fastball, he has a split change, and he has a slider. He throws that four-seam fastball 64% of the time. It averages 98 miles an hour, gets up to 100. That split change is nasty. He's got the slider. If you look down at his metrics, the slider definitely has been hit quite a bit more. It has a 296 batting average against. It has a 367 weighted on base average against. So a bit of damage done against the slider, but really good metrics against the four seam and the splitter. A 216 batting average allowed in 2023 on the four seam. A 189 batting average allowed against the split finger in 2023. And if you look back to 2022, his metrics were off the chart. He had a 1.15 ERA over 59 games pitched, 54 and 2/3 innings in 2022. Now, ERA isn't the best metric to look at because there's a lot of variables that factor into a pitcher's ERA. It's not just how good the pitcher is doing. It's also dependent on defense and various other things. I mean, you look at his 2022 Baseball Savant, he had a 1.15 ERA. He was in the first percentile in walk rate that year. So he was able to get guys to whiff and to strike out, and he was able to miss barrels, as you can see from the Baseball Savant. But I mean, at his ceiling, he is a very good relief pitcher. And if he's a guy that you can throw in there in the 7th inning, you also have him for the 8th or the 9th if you really need him. But you also have the true impact guys back there in Munoz, Santos, Brash, Spire, Saucedo, all those guys. So this bullpen is going to be absolutely nasty, even more so than we recently thought. Now getting into Tyson Miller. So I saw this tweet that Ryan Divish put out today, and it made me raise an eyebrow. He says reliever Tyson Miller has impressed the Mariners with how much he's embraced their pitching input. A lot of similarities to Paul Sewald in terms of arm slot and pitch profile. Let me pull that up here. Here's some footage of Tyson Miller. We'll play it through here. He's got a big leg kick. He's got a big leg kick, and then his follow through, his arm slot is a lot like Paul Sewald. He's signaling for the sinker there. He's got that unique arm slot coming out of the sprinkler head, as Pete Woodworth would say. Now, if I show you his stats here. So Tyson Miller, his stats are nothing to write home about as well. I'm not going to be able to pull it up here. He is a 28-year-old reliever, 6'5", 220. He has played for the Cubs, the Rangers, the Brewers, the Dodgers, most recently the Mets. Over his 3-year career in the major leagues, he has a 1.548 whip, a 6.97 ERA, a strikeouts per 9 of only 5.2, and a walks per 9 of 4.9. So I don't know how much weight behind, Divish's tweet you should really put on it, but unique arm slot. It worked in the past, and you look at his metrics, he's only throwing, average fastballs 91, but very similar to the Paul Sewald arm slot. Paul Sewald wasn't blowing it by guys. He was blowing it by guys, but because it was coming up at such a unique angle, he didn't need 97 to do that. Paul Sewald was in the low 90s as well, probably closer to 93. We'll have to take a look and see what Tyson Miller, how he progresses, if he is able to, come in at some point throughout the year in the bullpen spot. Likely, it's going to be a battle for that last bullpen position between Trenton Thornton and Carlos Vargas, because right now the bullpen is pretty built out. Now let me go ahead and pull up a metric, or I'll pull up the lineup from today's spring training game. This might be very similar to what you see on opening day. So today's lineup was J.P. Crawford leading off, playing shortstop. Second was Julio Rodriguez playing center field. Second base, Jorge Polanco. Then you got Mitch Garver and then Mitch Haniger. You got Dominic Canzone, Ty France, Luis Arias, and then Sebi Zavala with Gilbert on the mound. Absent Cal Raleigh, you slot in Cal Raleigh instead of Zavala. I'm curious if Cal Raleigh would bat right after Mitch Garver, or if they're planning to have Mitch Haniger bat after Garver, have righty, and then a switch, and then Canzone. We'll see where Cal Raleigh is slotted to be hitting. But, I mean, this is a very promising lineup. You look at the lineups that the Mariners have put out in the years past, the floor is so much higher than it has been in the past. The ceiling, I would argue, is right up there with where it has been in the past as well, but there's going to be a lot more consistency this year, day in and day out. I'm just curious how many at-bats, how many games they're going to, how often they're going to be playing Mitch Haniger. Is he going to get 4 games a week? Is he going to play 5 games a week? Because, you got Mitch Garver at everyday DH. So if Haniger is taking a day off, he's probably taking a full day off. My concern with, having Haniger out there all the time is, yes, one, the health concern, but also 2, it's Are you going to allow Dominic Canzone and Luke Raley to be able to get the at-bats and get the exposure that they really need to see their potential? Because as you guys were mentioning in the chat, you were asking about Luke Raley. It's not looking all that great right now. Luke Raley is 1 for 18 this spring with 7 strikeouts. And as I was going to mention before, let's back up for a second and look at that Kelenic trade. So Kelenic was traded to the Braves along with, of course, Evan White, Marco Gonzalez. In return, we received Cole Phillips, who is a currently 20-year-old. He's going to be 21 in just a couple months now. Cole Phillips, he is on his Tommy John surgery number 2. Jackson Kowar, the other return from the Braves in the Kelenic trade, is now headed for Tommy John surgery. But Jared Kelenic for the Braves this spring is currently batting 2 for 27, batting .074, no extra base hits and 7 strikeouts. Last year, I remember I was comparing Kelenic, lining up his swing and Bryce Harper's swing, and Kelenic was tearing it up last spring. So I'm curious to see with Kelenic. I wish him the best. I'm curious to see how he does with the Braves. If he's allowed to, slot in, bat 9th for the Braves and have that spot to be able to kind of figure himself out, we'll see. But 2 for 27 in spring training for Jared Kelenic very well might continue into the season. I'm curious to see with Luke Raley how they use him. When he was first traded over, I started to do the digging into the numbers. Luke Raley looks extremely promising. As my player profile on him mentions, he's the most under the radar power speed threat in baseball, potentially. He's one of only 10 guys with a sprint speed and a hard barrel percentage in the 80th percentile or higher. The guy has legit power. Then you got Dominic Canzone, that's also on the other end. He apparently has put 15 pounds of muscle on this offseason. So Dominic Canzone, and again, you look at his numbers, he was batting over 300, well over 300 in college, like 310 throughout the minor leagues. He's got the true bat to ball skills that can play at the major leagues. He added 15 pounds of muscle. We saw he hit a missile off the Hit It Here Cafe last year against the Orioles. The ceiling for Dominic Canzone and for Luke Raley are both sky high. Well, fingers crossed that Mitch Haniger can stay healthy throughout the year and contribute. But I'm just curious. You got to give the guys at bats if you really want to see what they can do. And as Luke Raley has mentioned in past interviews, he just wasn't given consistent at bats up to that point in his career until last year with the Rays. With the Dodgers, he came up, was sent back down. He would crush in the minor leagues, but then struggle at the major leagues because he wasn't given that time to adapt. So I'm curious to see what the opening day lineup will look like. It will look very similar to what I just pulled up here, but that's going to be something to watch. Next up, I want to talk about the spring breakout that is going to be coming up. Let me do this here. So coming up on March 15th at 1:10 p.m., the Padres are going to be playing the Mariners in it's called the Breakout Series, which is going to be happening for the first time this year. Here we go. So a spring breakout game between the Padres and the Mariners will feature 8 top 100 prospects and several of the top international phenoms from the 2 classes. The Padres have a stacked depth chart of top prospects. Ethan Salas is like 17, 18 years old as a catcher. He might be debuting as a teenager. On the other side, you have a couple guys that have the potential to debut really soon. I mean, all of these guys, Cole Young and Harry Ford, there is a chance that they could see, some playing time in Seattle this year. Let me pull up the full depth chart for that spring breakout. Here's the full spring breakout depth chart for the Mariners. For 2024, you got left-hander Peyton Alford. You got right-handed pitchers Juan Burgos, Ty Cummings, Logan Evans, the Vanilla Missile, Walter Ford, Brody Hopkins, Brody Hopkins, I had on the podcast a while back. You should go check out his interview if you haven't seen that yet. But in the interview with Locked On Mariners and Jerry Dipoto mentioned that Brody Hopkins is a guy to really watch out for. Because if you shorten him up and you throw him in the bullpen, tell him to pitch 1 inning, he's going to be hitting 100. And he's got nasty stuff with a very unique arm slot. It's kind of like a sidearm type thing, like a Seawald-ish, but he's got 100 in the tank. So watch out for Brody Hopkins. There's also Jeter Martinez, Michael Morales, Troy Taylor, catchers Harry Ford and Matt Scheffler, outfielders Jonathan Clase, Johnny Formello, who had his first home run in the spring the other day, Lazaro Montes, Spencer Packard, Alberto Rodriguez, and Aiden Smith. And then the infield, Michael Arroyo, Ryan Bliss, Felin Celestine, Colt Emerson, Tyler Locklear, Ty Pete, Luis Suispel, Ben Williamson, Hogan Windish, and Cole Young. I mean, the Mariners farm system is in a great spot at this point. So make sure to tune into that. That's going to be March 15th at 1:10 p.m. versus the Padres. Next up is Noelvi Marte and that suspension. As we saw earlier this week, it was announced that Noelvi Marte was suspended for 80 games for PED use. He's the number 21 prospect in all of baseball. The Reds, looking at that Reds trade, sending Luis Castillo to Seattle, they got quite a haul. Edwin Arroyo, Noelvi Marte, I believe Connor Phillips was also in that one. No, sorry, Levi Stout. Levi Stout is now back with the Mariners, who pitched today. But, I mean, looking at the Reds system right now, even with Noelvi Marte gone as of current, the Reds are going to be a serious contender in the NL Central, looking to win their first NL Central since 2012. Here is the Reds depth chart. You got a rotation of Hunter Green, Graham Ashcraft, Frankie Montas, Andrew Abbott, Brandon Williamson, another former Mariner, Nick Lodolo, Connor Phillips, former Mariner, as well as Nick Martinez. Then you got a bullpen. Back end is Alexis Diaz, Edwin Diaz's brother, and Lucas Sims. Then this lineup is going down position by position. Catcher Tyler Stevenson, first base Christian Encarnacion Strand. You got second baseman Matt McLean with Jonathan India backing him up. Heimer Candelario now takes over third base with Noelvi Marte being gone. Ellie De La Cruz at shortstop. Spencer Steer in left field. Former Mariner Jake Fraley in the outfield. Also TJ Friedel and Will Benson. That Reds lineup is going to be solid. And when Noelvi comes back, he was slotted to be the everyday third baseman heading into the season. And when he came up last year and debuted, he ended up hitting like 316 with, he's got solid potential. And it's unfortunate to see when people test positive. And I don't think his camp has really come out and said much after that news has come out. But people ask, why do people take performance enhancing drugs? Well, the short answer and the easy answer is that they're trying to perform so that they can maximize their contracts and set their families up for life. And it's unfortunate to see that, but that's just kind of the realities of what it is. Beyond that, it's going to be a fun week. MLB The Show comes out Thursday night at 9 p.m. Pacific. MLB The Show 2024. I'll be playing that live stream. So if you're into MLB The Show, make sure to watch out on Thursday night. I'll be live streaming, playing a little Diamond Dynasty, opening packs, and doing all that. So now it's going to be a shorter podcast today, but I'm going to give away the Baseballism large sweatshirt. So if you'd like to win the Baseballism large sweatshirt, pay attention here. The question is, and you are going to want to enter in on wherever you're watching the stream, just enter the comment, the answer. How many strikeouts and walks did George Kirby have his senior year at Elon? So both the strikeouts and the walks. The first person that submits both of those will win the sweatshirt. How many strikeouts and walks did George Kirby have his senior year at Elon? That's the question to win the sweatshirt. Yeah, you can look it up, but I'm hoping someone knows it off the top of their head, or whoever can look it up quickest. Senior year at Elon, how many strikeouts and walks did George Kirby have his senior year at Elon? John, that is not correct. You can look it up. And if you have any other questions, topics you'd like me to cover, let me know. But if you'd like to win the sweatshirt, how many strikeouts and walks did George Kirby have his senior year at Elon? Baseballism sweatshirt to have whoever. Anyone have the number? John, it's not close. Mitchell, you're off. How many strikeouts and walks did George Kirby have his senior year at Elon? $107 and 6. There you go. Mitchell Hopkins. George Kirby had 107 strikeouts and 6 walks his senior year at Elon. So you win the baseballism sweatshirt, Mitchell. That's a 17.83 strikeout to walk ratio. Mitchell, if you can DM me on Instagram, then I'll get your information and send you off the sweatshirt. So each week I'll be giving something away for the next few weeks. I've got some stuff from Baseballism, from Black Label that I'll be giving away. But yeah, let me know if you're going to be up in Seattle opening weekend, that Thursday and Friday. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be posting a starting rotation preview tomorrow for the Mariners rotation. That'll complete the preview series. First, I did the Mariners bullpen. Then I did the Mariners lineup. Tomorrow, I'll be releasing the starting rotation for the Mariners. And spoiler alert, the Mariners have a chance to have a historic rotation this year. And it's not just because we're, diehard Mariners fans that are blind to everything. It's like all of these guys are 95 plus with disgusting off speed and breaking pitches. And in the past, the Mariners have had some great starting pitchers, and Randy Johnson, Jamie Moyer, Felix Hernandez, of course. They even had Randy Johnson and Jamie Moyer in the same rotation in 1996 up through the midway through 98. But 1 through 5, the Mariners have never had a starting rotation as good as what they have now. So just appreciate what we got right here in the Mariners rotation and their lineup. So I'll be posting that video tomorrow. But thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll be going live every week. If you're going to be watching on Thursday evening, I'll see you there playing some MLB The Show. It releases at 9 p.m. Pacific. So hope to see you there. And thank you for tuning in.